Welcome to Real Talk. This is where we dig into the sources you send us, pulling out the key insights.
Yep, getting straight to the core of it.
And today, we're looking at something we all use basically everyday clothes. You send over some really interesting material detailing how a garment product is actually, well, built and engineered.
That's right. And it's definitely more complex than most people probably think.
Yeah.
It's not just someone sketching a nice picture and then voila, it's sewn up.
No, not at all.
What these sources show is this whole multi-stage journey. It takes a lot of teamwork, technical know-how, way before anything hits a shop floor.
Right. So our mission today is to walk through these steps, the ones laid out in your sources, and really get a feel for what actually goes into creating the clothes we wear. Let's get into it, starting right at the beginning.
Okay, step one is design conceptualization. It kicks off with research, looking at trends, figuring out customer preferences, making sure it fits the brand's vibe.
Standard stuff.
But here's a critical point your source really emphasizes right from the get-go. Designers have to think about the fabric before they even draw a detailed design.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense when you say, like, you can't design something super flowy with, I don't know, stiff canvas.
Exactly. Knowing the fabric's construction, how it's going to drape, the weight, all those characteristics, it fundamentally changes how you technically put the garment together.
Yeah.
And the source mentions that actually a lot of retailers kind of stumble here. They don't nail this early on, and that leads to big problems with fit later because they're essentially trying to force a design onto a fabric that just doesn't work for it.
Right, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, basically. So fabric thinking first, then the visualization. Sketches, or I guess computers?
Yep. Sketches or often computer-aided design software CAD. Your sources mention common 2D ones like CorelDRAW or maybe Adobe Illustrator. And these are important because they often link up with later steps like the pattern-making systems. But what's really fascinating and quite recent, like the last couple of years,
Yeah.
is the rise of 3D design technology.
Ooh, okay. 3D for clothes. How does that work?
So you take that 2D sketch and basically build it into a three-dimensional model. You apply the actual fabric specifications, the color, even how it's supposed to fit, onto a digital person, an avatar.
Wow.
It's like making a virtual sample. Your sources had links to software like CLO 3D, Adobe Substance 3D, Browseware, Onshape. These are some of the big players.
Yeah.
And this tech integrates with the pattern systems too.
So you can see how it'll really hang and move before cutting any real fabric. That sounds like a game changer.
It really is. And that
Yeah.
flows perfectly into step two, which, like we said, kind of happens alongside the concept phase, material selection.
Right, choosing the actual fabric. And it's not just about, ooh, pretty color.
Definitely not. It's driven by the design's needs, the garment's function, what's it for. It's look, sure, but also specific properties like stretch, durability, maybe breathability. You got to pick materials that let the product do its job properly.
So what kind of technical details are we talking about when you tell a supplier what you need?
Well, your source gave a good example. You'd specify composition weight, say 30D nylon, 60 GISM. That tells them it's a specific denier, nylon, pretty fine thread, and its weight per square meter, so quite light.
Okay, gramism, grams per square meter. Got it.
Then warp weft, maybe 60-40, which is about the thread count in each direction. And construction, like 4x2 box weave, describing the actual weave pattern. This level of detail is crucial so the supplier delivers exactly the right stuff for the design.
That's incredibly specific. Okay, concept nailed, material chosen. What's next on the list?
Step three, pattern making. This is where the design becomes a technical blueprint.
Like the paper pieces.
It's essentially yes. They translate the designs, the measurements, where trims go, performance specs like stretch all into patterns. These are the guides for cutting the fabric pieces accurately. Now, smaller companies might still do this manually, but your source points out that bigger retail and manufacturing outfits use pattern-making software. Names like Lectra and Gerber pop up. Gerber is mentioned as being used globally, and crucially, it integrates with those CAD programs.
Even the 3D ones.
Even the 3D ones, yeah, like CLO 3D. That integration is a huge deal for efficiency.
I bet. Saves redoing work. Does switching to that tech cost a lot upfront for companies?
Oh, for sure. There's the software cost, training people. It's an investment. But for larger companies, the payoff in efficiency, fewer physical samples, better accuracy, it can definitely be worth it over time.
Makes sense.
And part of pattern making is also pattern nesting or grading. Once you have the pattern for the base size, say medium, you then create the patterns for all the other sizes, small, large, XL, etc., from that base.
Ah, so they all keep the same basic shape and proportion.
Exactly. It ensures the fit is consistent across the whole size range. Your source even showed examples of the measurement points needed, like neck drops, chest width, sleeve length, for a top, really precise stuff the pattern maker needs.
Okay, detailed patterns are ready. Now we make it.
Nearly. Step 4 is sample development, creating prototypes, using the chosen fabric, the trims, and those patterns we just talked about.
And this is where that 3D design could potentially skip a step.
Yes, exactly. If the 3D model and specs are accurate enough, sometimes that digital sample is good enough for approval. You might bypass making a physical one entirely at this stage.
Which saves time, materials, shipping.
Huge savings, potentially, which can influence the overall cost, yes. But if a physical sample is made, it gets looked at very closely. Fit, comfort, does it work like it's supposed to? Does it look right aesthetically?
Okay, samples checked, then full production.
Hold on, not so fast. Step 5, quality control and testing. This is vital. And QC isn't just a final check, it happens throughout the manufacturing process. Consistency is key.
What kind of tests do they run?
Your sources mentioned the big ones. Durability testing, color fastness, making sure the color doesn't bleed or fade badly, and shrinkage tests after washing. All to ensure the garment meets the required quality standards. They often use specialized testing labs, ones that follow international standards, like ISO standards. These provide benchmarks for quality, safety, and they might also bring in third-party inspectors.
Independent eyes.
Exactly. Companies like SGS, QIMA, Intertek, your sources, listed these as examples of global third-party firms. They can run tests for the brand or the manufacturer, just adds another layer of checking.
Okay, and you mentioned something specific for technical gear, wearer trials.
Yes, wearer trials. Super important, especially for anything performance-based like sportswear or outdoor clothing. This involves actual users wearing the garment, washing it over time, and giving really detailed feedback.
What kind of feedback?
The source listed specific questions.
Yeah.
How's the fit in action? How does the fabric feel? How does it perform? Does it wick sweat? Does it block wind? Do the features work pockets, zips, vents? How did it hold up in the wash? Did it shrink, lose its shape?
That sounds incredibly useful, real-world testing.
It's invaluable. And that feedback is used to make changes, tweak the design before mass production. Your source gave a pretty extreme example, the North Face. Apparently, they can put a product through this testing cycle 7 times before it hits the market.
7? Wow. That must add quite a bit to the cost, right? That level of testing.
Oh, absolutely. Repeated samples, testing fees, the sheer time involved, it adds significant cost. But for them, it ties directly into their brand promise,
Yeah.
quality, function, and tough conditions. That investment is core to what they offer.
Okay, so testing done, feedback gathered. Then what?
Step 6 is the finishing touches. This is where they take all that info, the lab tests, the fit reports, the wearer trial feedback, and make any final adjustments. They might construct one last pre-production sample, incorporating all the final tweaks, get that signed off.
The final version.
Pretty much. The master sample that the factory will replicate. Everything has to be just right fit, feel, trims, stitching before they hit go on the main production run.
Got it. And then finally, it's ready for the customer.
Well, step 7 is packaging and labeling. Sounds minor, maybe, but your source flags it as often overlooked, yet really important. It's the first physical interaction the customer has. The packaging, hang tags. It needs to match the brand's story, its feel.
Right, the whole experience. And the labels inside, the wash care labels, there are rules for those, aren't there?
Absolutely. Major legal requirements, especially for importing and under consumer protection laws like the CPA. Specific info has to be on that label.
Like what?
Your source lists them. Country of origin, where it was actually made, not just shipped from, an importer's code, usually for tax stuff. The exact percentage fiber content, no vague cotton blend. It needs to be precise, like 95% cotton, 5% elastane. And the care instructions using the proper international symbols plus a written description.
And sometimes you see other bits on there, like style numbers.
Yeah, things like a style name, PO number, color code, those are usually optional. Depends on the company's internal systems and what they choose to include.
It's amazing how much detail goes into even that tiny label, driven by law and branding.
It really is. And I think the big takeaway from your sources is that this whole process, from that first idea to the label, it hinges on collaboration. Constant back and forth between designers, pattern makers, technical folks, the manufacturers, the QC teams.
Everyone working together.
Yeah, constant refinement.
Okay.
That's how you get from an idea to a garment that actually fits and works and lasts.
So it's definitely way more than just sketching and sewing. It's research, it's technical design, material science, engineering, a whole lot of testing, legal stuff. and yeah, intense collaboration.
That's the real talk of how your clothes come to life.
Absolutely. So, thinking about taking a garment from just an idea to something finished and ready for you to wear, knowing all these intricate steps, the research, the tech, the testing,
How does knowing all that detail maybe change how you look at the clothes you choose to buy and wear? Something to chew on next time you're browsing or getting dressed.
definitely gives you a new perspective. All the information for this Real Talk deep dive came from Verwant Solutions.
And if you want to find out more about them, you can connect with Vermont Solutions on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram.
Their website is www.verwant.co.za. That's verwwant.u.z.
Or just drop an email at info@vermont.co.za.